Hi, and welcome to Conduct Her, where we are two sisters on a mission to amplify women's voices on the podium. Join us as we interview leaders in the field of choral music, share resources, and build a community for current and future teacher conductors, all while exploring the gender divide. I'm Kyra Starr. And I'm McKenna Stenson, and we are Conduct Her. Well, hello, everyone. We are so excited to have another fantastic guest with us today. Kyra, do you want to introduce our guest for the day?
Yes, today we're so excited to have Liana Salinas with us today. Welcome, Liana.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, ladies. I've heard such great things about the both of you, and I've gotten a chance to meet Kyra in person, and so it's nice to see your face now, McKenna, and excited to chat with you guys.
You too. So before we start, we wanted to read a little bit about you for our listeners. So Liana Salinas is a dynamic music educator and entrepreneur based in Miami, Florida. She serves as the artistic director of the Miami Children's Chorus, MCC, an organization she has been part of for 25 years. Having grown up in the chorus, she knows firsthand the power of choral singing and the beautiful community it fosters. In 2023, she proudly shared this message on national television during her interviews on The Kelly Clarkson Show. Under her leadership, MCC has built upon its 60-year legacy with a fresh approach that embraces contemporary styles and skills such as jazz and songwriting. Mrs. Salinas is also the CEO and founder of My Music Match, a company that connects students with teachers for private lessons in Miami, New York, and virtually all over the world. She understands that finding the right teacher can shape a child's future. My Music Match also partners with schools to offer supportive classes for music programs and books musicians for live events and festivals.
A sought-after conductor, Ms. Salinas has recently led the ACDA Eastern Region Middle School Honor Choir, the Miami-Dade Superintendent's Middle School Honor Choir, and will conduct the ACDA Western Region Youth Unchanged Voices Honor Choir in 2026. She has commissioned works from esteemed composers, including Rollo Dilworth, Maria Ellis, a former Conductor podcast interviewee, Christian Grasses, Melissa Dunphy, and David Brunner. Additionally, she has had the honor of collaborating with renowned artists such as Manuel Turizo, Juan Luis Guerra, Juanes, Paquito de Rivera, Willie Churino, Emilio, and Gloria Estefan. By fostering a love for music, Ms. Salinas empowers young singers to find their voice, ensuring that the joy of choral singing continues to resonate for years to come. So we're going to dive in here. We start with the three same questions for all of our guests so we can get a little bit of background. And we'd love to know, would you tell us just a bit about your upbringing and how you came to choral music?
Sure. I had a semi-musical family. My grandmother from my dad's side played multiple instruments, flute, piano, guitar, but I didn't grow up with her at all. I just had that influence from my parents, having, parents who loved music. So my dad would, break out into song at the dinner table. My mom would, I never say people are tone deaf, but she was close, over the years. Now she's improved a lot, but really her love of music really influenced my sisters and I, who all grew up going to an elementary school that had a great choir program. And we all started on viola and were in orchestra all the way through high school, actually. So between that, and then I was actually in the Miami Children's Chorus from 8 years old through 18, getting music both in school and through the community choir was just, I had it from all angles. And then hearing, Carmina Burana and Celine Dion and everyone else at home, because my parents love music so much, I think gave me a really well-rounded exposure. And just, I grew this really natural, organic love of a wide variety of styles from a very young age. And so I guess from an educational standpoint, I credit a lot of my career and my growth in music to those teachers that I had at a really early age. Elementary school, Miss Andrea Busher at William Lehman Elementary. And then going through middle school, I was in orchestra. I had Mr. Diaz. And then in high school, I had an amazing teacher, Miss Della Rosa, for chorus. And all of that time, I had my mentor at the Miami Children's Chorus, Mr. Timothy Sharp. Not the ACDA Timothy Sharp. Everyone always gets them confused. But he's really been like the backbone and consistent figure that I've had since, elementary school all the way into young adulthood, and who I took over the organization after he retired. I've had just a wide experience going in those school programs and in both vocal and instrumental programs, and then having the Miami Children's Chorus, and just the types of performances and artistic collaborations that the organization did and continues to do, collabs with other artistic programs like dance programs and art programs, and the scale of those performances that can be really small and community based, and then big, like at the Arch Center or Miami's Carnegie Hall, or going on tours all over the world. As a student, I got to travel to England, Argentina, Brazil, South Africa, and then beyond. Now I get to take my students to Spain on tour. It's just been it's like an inspirational, motivational aspect of music making that goes a little bit beyond just the learning of the music and the theory and the subject matter itself, but that the real world application of that music making out in the world. I think it's been prevalent in my journey since I was very young, and I'm really grateful for that.
I love that so much, Liana. I think a lot of times people, when they go into music as their career, kind of forget that like popular music and other genres of music exist. And I love that you reference that as being part of your childhood and being integral to you becoming a professional musician, is just a love for music. Not only in terms of like your choral and orchestral experiences, but also listening to Gloria Estefan on the radio and being like, yes, I love what I'm hearing around me, in addition to the experiences that I'm having in a more academic or more formal setting. I think that's so important, and love that connection to the rest of the world that you're talking about. When we think about you going from this young, thriving musician in these incredible organizations and at your beautiful middle school and elementary school and high school experiences into college, can you talk a little bit about what events were inspirational for you to choose choral music as your career?
Yeah. I think those performance opportunities, there's just something so solidifying when day in, day out, week in, week out, you're doing these rehearsals, and then you have this performance, and it all kind of comes together, and there's this magic that happens when you can't stop and fix something. You just have to do it front to back, and there's a presence and a connection that happens between you and the other people on the stage, and between the singers and the conductor. And I just always felt that I never took that for granted. I really felt it even from a young age, that there was something special that happened in those moments. And there's one performance in particular. It was the tree lighting ceremony around Christmas at Merrick Park here in Coral Gables in Miami, with the Miami Children's Chorus. And I don't know what it was about that event. I've told this story so many times, and I can't really put my finger on it, because we were just singing, like holiday tunes, nothing spectacular, not just like traditional little holiday tunes. But maybe it was like the big old Christmas tree and the lights and the twinkling, and who knows, the spirit of the holidays. But at the end of that performance, I was moved, and I went up to Mr. Sharp, and I was like, Mr. Sharp, when are you going to retire? He's like, I don't know why. I'm like, because I want your job. And I was like 12 years old. And luckily he took me seriously. He was like, okay. And he gave me lots of opportunities after that. There was another event. It was when the chorus was on tour in Oregon for the Pick Fest, like Bach Pick Fest. And Sandra Snow was the conductor. And she just has such a presence. Like, she's such a force, and she's so like commanding, and I think some people would even describe her as maybe like unapproachable. She's so professional and like stern. At least at the time, that's like the impression that she gave. And she had this like sea of all these different, kids from different choirs from all over the country, and actually even some international groups. I think there was a group from Taiwan. This group did not speak English. Most of them didn't. And I was sitting next to a girl who didn't speak any English, but, I was trying to point along with her. I must have been like 15 years old. And she was like 10. And so I'm trying to point along to where we are in the music, and we're singing something in Latin anyway, so it was fine. It wasn't even in English, and we just were communicating without words. And there was something that happened. The synapses in my brain just went like ding 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 ding. I was like, this is so special. Like music really is the universal language, because here we are, like two people from across the world, and we just got it, and we were making music together, and our voices were in sync. And yeah, it was like a special human to human connection. I believe that human beings are here to make connections with one another, to just uncover ourselves through the connections that we make with other human beings. And music can be such an amazing medium to do that. And I think that's why I love teaching music so much. So those two events, I think, really sparked and solidified my desire to be a music educator and a choral conductor specifically.
Well, that was all super beautiful. And I can connect with so many of the things that you were just sharing. And I feel like time and time again, we asked this question on the podcast: what was the reason you chose music as your career? And it's not maybe a peak musical moment that you might expect as the director. If you're programming for the year, you might not think that the tree lighting ceremony is going to be the moment where a student comes up and says, this is what I want to do. And I love it, Liana. More specifically, I want your job.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hey everyone, come check out the newest collaborations with Conductor and Call Time Clothing. Shop the newest designs from your favorite female conductor-owned clothing line, inspired by choir and music education, made to order just for you. Get one of your own for $35 Canadian, or about $26 American, plus a flat rate shipping fee. Visit calltimeclothing.com today. Do you live near other conductors and want to save on shipping? Order multiple tees in one order so that you only pay one shipping fee. Visit calltimeclothing.com today or follow us on Instagram.
And we're back.
But I think time and time again, we're surprised, and it's a good reminder for all of us out there working with students right now that it's the day-to-day or some of these moments that are maybe steeped in tradition, or just that magic can come from anywhere. And it doesn't have to be going to Spain, although that's amazing, but just remembering that what we're doing has an impact, and that's really important. That leads us into one last introduction question. You talked so beautifully about your mentorship and your relationship and the opportunities with Tim Sharp and the beautiful through line of music from your elementary all the way through high school experiences. Was there anyone else that you want to mention today who has been helpful or influential in your musical journey?
It's funny because I definitely was planning to, share all the teachers. And I want to reiterate, I think, like a one-liner for each one, let's say, like Andrea Busher, she recognized and was not afraid of saying, you have something special and I see that you want to do this, so I'm going to give you those extra opportunities. She's the one who actually pointed me in the direction of the Miami Children's Chorus. And I basically owe her everything for that. My orchestra teacher, Mr. Diaz, in middle school, I was in 6th grade, and I was like, hey, I'm kind of curious, like, I want to get on the podium. Like, could I conduct something? He was like, yeah, why don't you lead warm-ups tomorrow? So he just gave me the opportunity in everyday rehearsals, and I did it often. In high school, Christine De La Rosa, who I mentioned before, same, like very early on, I was the only 9th grader in the like advanced chorus. But she saw this like burning desire that I had. And for anyone who is not already a teacher or conductor, but is an aspiring teacher or conductor, I would say like a piece of advice is plant those seeds. Don't be afraid of just speaking what it is that you want. My mom always said, ask and you shall receive. And it's just such a good lesson. Like, the worst thing that can happen is they say no, but more likely than not, they're going to say yes, because everyone has been in your shoes at one point and everyone wants to lift you up. So, she said yes. And I soon became, section leader and then student conductor. And with Christine in particular, I got to a point where the school was a relatively new music program, the one that she kind of started. And so I wanted to go a little beyond the level of the music that we were doing in class. So I started this little ensemble that would rehearse after school. And it was like right at the time when, I mean, Eric Whitacre is always relevant, but it was at the time, there was like a whole season when Eric Whitacre was like the hot choral guy that everyone was obsessed with. So that was the time. And so we started doing like Water Night and With a Lily and, all of his stuff. So we just rehearsed it on our own. And I was like the little director of that group. And she made it a class, like an official class the next year. So, it was that kind of support that I felt, so encouraged. And it continued to boost my confidence. And then Tim Sharp, like I said, it was all from when I was 12 years old. He's like, yeah, well, you want to be a teacher? You're in the advanced group. Why don't you come to the beginning group and learn how to mentor our elementary students? And I did that from, imagine I'm only 12, 13 years old in middle school and I'm like teaching the 8-year-olds, but I was so, excited and ready and just feeling great about it. And then that led into Joanna Haberman, who's Josh Haberman's wife, and she's an incredible music educator, especially for young voices. She was working with the intermediate level, and then I kind of graduated to working under her wing. And then that led straight into, when Mr. Sharp retired, then me taking over the program. So it really is the connecting of the dots of all of these educators who just said yes, 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 yes each time.
That was so beautiful, Liana. Do you have more to add?
Yeah, one more little sentence then. I think the last person who had like a major influence on the career and anyone's life, like you're one of the most important figures in anyone's life, is your mother. I don't think I've ever on any of these interviews like acknowledged her, but I just wanted, oh my God, why am I getting emotional? She just moved from Miami to Asheville, and now I don't know, it's like hitting me a little different. But like that woman sacrificed so much to get my sisters and I to the 1,000,001 things that we did every single day, our choirs and orchestras and dance. And, we were like in everything. And she was somehow a chauffeur and a full-time like single provider. And like, we cannot underestimate what our parents do to get us to where we are and the influence that they have when they encourage you to pursue your dreams, especially when those dreams are in the arts. And there's so much messaging that's, this, you don't want to become the starving artist. It's like, that was never my mentality, because my mom said, this is what you love to do it, throw yourself into it 100%. And thank the Lord, I've never been a starving artist, because I've just always believed in my abilities to make a true career, a successful career in all, forms. It's not just, success is, it can be measured in so many different ways, what your students are achieving, your artistic fulfillment, just the level of happiness and joy that you experience as you do what you do. But, the reality is, in this world, like, we all have to make a living, and there's that monetary exchange. And I think in our education world, there's this mentality of sacrifice, like just buy your own supplies or volunteer to do this or that out of the kindness of your heart. And it's like, why? No one else does that. So the fact that, I feel that the confidence that was built between these teachers and my mom's deeply set belief that you can really do whatever you want and be successful has led to me being able to actually do that. And I just wish that for everyone, I really do.
There was so much to take from that statement, Liana. I loved that you referenced kind of connecting the dots between all of these people in your life and the power that people have to really just empower others. And I think that as all of us here, we can think to ourselves, how can we be that person for the next generation of students? And in whatever capacity, ensure that when they leave the space that we are the leaders in, that they feel ready for the next step. And even if that means encouraging them to do scary things, like, lead a warm up tomorrow. I love that so much. Just put these things into actions, because these are the small steps that encourage people and allow them to say, you know what, that's a little out of my comfort zone, but I'm ready to take that on. And that's going to equip me for the next step in my musical journey. So I love that so much. you segued us into our first question beautifully, which is you were a former member of MCC, the Miami Children's Chorus, and the Miami Children's Choir. Can you talk about what it has been like to return as the artistic director and maybe some of the challenges and joy that came with that position?
Yeah, I actually never left because I happened to go to the University of Miami right across the street from where MCC rehearsed. And I just couldn't imagine myself, graduating and leaving. So I had graduated from high school. I was 18 and then went to an MCC event. Joanna Haberman was the new conductor that year for the intermediate group. And she's like, I've heard a lot about you. You're that girl. You've been helping the little ones. Do you want to come and help me instead? I'm like, yes. So I just started, assistant teaching, assistant conducting with that group. Now we have actual assistant, like teaching assistants in the choir. But at the time, that was just, this organic thing that they offered me the opportunity and I just, volunteered. But it was great because I got to see a different perspective. I'd been working with the same mentor, Mr. Sharp, for so long, and she had a totally different style, which was great. And at the time, that group had kind of a rotating door of directors because some of them were graduate students. And so I actually got to work with several people in that position. And I graduated early because I was so desperate to get out of school. I was like, I just want to be a teacher already. I don't like being a student. So I graduated after 3 years. And so I was 21 and I became the director of that group of basically treble voices, but younger, like 8 to 13. So like elementary into middle school. And I taught that group for 7 years. It was seamless because I'd already had those students when I was, the teaching assistant for the elementary group. So I already knew so many of them. And then when Mr. Sharp did retire and I was offered the artistic director position, same thing. I had been working with all those middle school students for 7 years. And then, I knew all the high school students by the time I got to the advanced group. I know this is a very unusual situation, to like achieve your childhood dream at the place where you also like grew up. So some of the challenges that other people experience in transitions, I just didn't face. I knew the community inside and out. Even the board, the board knew that I was going to be taking over from when I was literally 12 years old. Mr. Sharp would say it at the concert, like, that's going to be, that's her. What I love about the choir is it really does have very much a family vibe. Everyone is so close, and just community choirs in general, when you can join at 7 or 8 years old, and now we actually start at 5, and we used to go to 18 and now we go to 22. You can have those students for over a decade. And so the relationships that you build with them and with their families, it's just on another level. Of course, there were other challenges, in just stepping up into that role of being an artistic director. And this past year, I've also become executive artistic director, which hopefully is a temporary situation because no one person should do everything, in my opinion. I think, we need to be in our lane. But it's always, for people who studied music education like I did, you're not really prepared for a setting outside of going right into a school, or continuing on the academic track to get your master's and doctorate, and then going into, the collegiate world and being like a DCA, right? Those are like the traditional tracks. And so all of the administrative, like budgeting aspects, even just like planning a season outside of just planning the music, like the programming, it's a whole different world. I'm lucky that I, grew up in that world and just had a little bit more like world experience. But that's part of the reason that I started this teaching assistant program, specifically in partnership with University of Miami, that's right across from us, because I wanted people like me who already knew that they didn't want to go into the school system to have that hands-on experience working with students who come from all different schools all over the county, different levels, and where the goal is a little different than in school. You only see them once a week or maybe a couple times, but in a school setting or in an art school, I saw my kids 3 times a week or more. And so what you're able to do is a little different and the goals are different. And so just all the other aspects that come also with beyond the educational piece is the administration, the running of a team, communication, setting up systems and processes that, on the back end that help the customer, right? It's like a whole different, there's new verbiage when you're doing it like this, but the customer facing side of things. I think I learned a lot of that also starting a business and building a whole infrastructure from scratch. But I really do see things that way. I'm like, okay, is this user friendly? What kind of access do people have to their information? How can I set up a system so that I can avoid issues and questions coming back to me, right? How can we make it seamless? So I really feel for anyone who is in that position, who they're like, I just wanted to do music. And then there are all these other things.
And now a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Hagan, composer and founder of Compose Like a Girl, a choral series dedicated to empowering composers who identify as women through mentorship, publication, and promotion. With over 30 pieces in the series, with many different voicings, we're showcasing fresh, compelling music like Womankind by Emily Drum, The Infinity of Space by Ritika Bhattacharjee, and When I Become an Old Woman by Sherry Blevins. Explore the catalog at jocelynhagan.com/composelikeagirl and graphitepublishing.com.
And we're back.
That they just come along like with the package, and even more so, like I said, this year with becoming executive artistic director. It's the development, the fundraising, grant writing, or at least working with someone who does that. The stewardship, the relationships of people who then are donating to your program. There's so many pieces of it, so they all work together, and it really is a holistic endeavor. And I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to see all those facets, because then ultimately, for anyone who's in my position, or for me in the future, when I do have an executive director, an artistic administrator, those team members, I'll be able to oversee what they're doing in a really concrete way, because I've done it myself.
I mean, you just spoke to so many things in your response, and we won't be able to touch on all of them, but what really hit home, because one of the questions Kyra and I ask often is questions about, like, what would you say to future music educators, or things of that nature, for people that are going through school. And I think regardless of where you go next, school can't prepare you for everything. It's impossible to hit all the things in that 4-year curriculum, but the administrative components, those executive-esque activities that you were referencing, are so integral to success in all the different capacities that we music. And what an amazing model of how to be an expert, really in both things, because that is what makes organizations run, and also school programs run, but in a different capacity in a community organization. And I know there are so many people who are listening who either are interested in starting their own organization or already active participants that will glean a lot from that response. And I'm excited to go back and listen to it on repeat myself with my notepad. As I was taking notes, I was like, oh, there's things I'm missing, so I've got to go back and do that again. So thank you so much. We are curious because in your bio, this partners with MCC, you talk about commissioning new works and different types of collaborative projects that you have done in the past. And we're curious to know, why are these types of collaborations and initiatives so important to you, and what value do you think they bring to an experience like the Miami Children's Chorus?
Well, I have to credit Mr. Sharp, my predecessor, for starting that initiative way before me. But I think it's so important, especially for children's, and youth organizations, to invest in the composers of our time. You're making a choice with who it is that you want to work with. You're saying, I believe in this person, and they either already know what they're doing when it comes to writing for young voices, or they're, talented, gifted, motivated and experienced to do it for other groups, but maybe with my help, they can learn how to do it for young voices. I think some of the challenges when you're a conductor and looking for repertoire, especially for uh, younger groups like elementary and middle school, I mean, what's the thing that we all say? It's like, oh, this is so cheesy. It's like, it sucks when you feel like you have to choose something that matches the level of your group, but it feels like you're sacrificing or settling the content. It just doesn't feel substantial or worthy of the experience. And then I would find myself altering that work to remove the parts that I felt like they were too corny. And so instead of doing that, I want to just continue to feed into our repertoire ecosystem works that I think are really achievable but challenging, and are teaching students what I prioritize, which are text. First thing I think of is, what are the lyrics? What is the text? What's the poetry here? What's the underlying message? Because like I said earlier, music to me is just the medium. We're learning about life. I would rather, be a math teacher than like just a performing musician. It's about like the opening of conversations through the medium of music. So the text is going to be the portal, and be able to, have those conversations flowing in your rehearsal. And then I think, what's the melodic and harmonic structure of this, and is it appropriate for, healthy for, and encouraging the development of these voices? What you'd be surprised, so many people that I work with, they write these kind of like outlandish melodies, and I'm like, respectfully, this range is not it. Like, we got to move this around. Or they'll do like a cross voicing because it maybe it's like an instrumental person who, and then there's a cross voice, and I'm like, that's really not necessary, and maybe we could do this instead, and it'll just make more sense. Or simple things like should these part splits go on one line with the two notes, or should they go on two stabs? And of course, experienced choral composers, like those kind of details, they come more naturally because they know. But I also find that it's amazing to work with instrumental or like composers of different genres who are writing, not for choirs, but are invested in children. So, for example, right now, I'm working with a composer, Eugenia Mendez. She's based here in Miami. She works with children. Her and her husband have a studio, and they, do private lessons in small ensembles. And she wrote a piece that was for piano and flute and narration, and it's based on a children's story. And so when she reached out to me, and basically she pitched me, which is unusual. Usually I'm the one reaching out, but I was like, okay, go get her. Yeah, let's talk. And then I saw the story, and I'm like, this actually would be an amazing piece for our youngest voices, our 5-year-olds to 7-year-olds, and then the middle schoolers who can do some of the harder movements. And so we've been kind of like really working hand in hand to edit the music. But that's something that she would have set it up completely differently, and it really takes the experience and the context, and coming into rehearsal, she's been like coming in and really listening, like, okay, what are their levels, like what is doable. And so I think that's really valuable, and it's how I'm most excited that then that gets to be shared with other choirs, and with us having performed that initial commission, and premiering it, and there's a recording, then it's like, hey, this is doable. Look, we did it. You can do it too. And just being a resource for other, not just community choirs, but, school groups. I think I always consider that. I'm like, we might be able to do it this way, but maybe we should publish it like this instead, just because it's going to look a little more doable to the average elementary teacher. So yeah, I want to put that out there. If anyone, also, I happen to be the ACDA Southern Youth, Repertoire and Resources Chair right now. So if anyone needs repertoire outside of like what you normally do, I'm more than happy. I have like a super precise and crazy looking spreadsheet of my own like personal library that I'm more than happy to share. It's like 10,000 pieces or something. So just, get in touch, because that repertoire and programming quality music is something that I'm like really, really, really passionate about. You have to love that music, and yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Well, I mean, everything you just said is brilliant, because that's why students want to sing in choir, is the repertoire and it is the messaging. And when you were saying, a lot of people struggle to find music for the younger developing students, I was like, yes, I've done an elementary school honor choir, and it's really challenging. You want them to have great quality music and an experience that is meaningful. And when you're 9 years old, you can have that experience. They live in the same world that we do, and they may not have the height that we do, but they certainly have the emotional range, and they're capable of a lot. And I think everything that you were talking about in terms of collaboration with the composers is also really important, and what a great opportunity for them. I recently wrote my first choral piece, and even just structuring it on the piece of paper is something that I had not considered before. And, I look at sheet music all day. Like, that's literally what I do. I'm forever looking at music and considering, oh my gosh, like, do I need to have the voicing written on every line? Like, what can I take away to make this more accessible for my singers? And ensure that when people are out there looking at the piece, they're like, oh, this is something that my group can do. And they will be excited about it, minimizing the things that we don't need, that sometimes get in the way. That I think a lot of times our composer friends are like, oh, this is going to like be incredible and sound brilliant. And sometimes we have to pare things back and come at it, even if it's for a collegiate group or a professional ensemble, and really say, what is the end goal and how can we get there that's going to keep people excited and engaged in the music?
Yeah.
I think too, something you said, Liana, to uplift was that collaborative element between you and the composer or the arranger or the ensemble. But just, I think for so many youth in the world, seeing adults collaborate and work together is priceless. And being able to work together in a way where you might not always agree on all of the concepts, but you're going to come to an end goal that meets the best outcome for the students in the room, or for the good of the group, or for the whole. And what a message for the times. So it's great to hear that.
Yeah, actually, I think it was 3 or 4 years, the Miami Children's Chorus, we did this project called Song of Us. And we brought in kind of like a guide and a team of young songwriters, and basically sectioned off each of the choirs from our end. So it was like mixed elementary, middle, and high schoolers with these college students. And we all collaborated in then putting, like, one group would write verse 1, and one would write the pre-chorus, one would write the chorus and the bridge. And so then we'd put it all together, and it needed to be a negotiation. And you're so right, for them to see that we can do that respectfully without, people's feelings getting hurt, especially in an artistic creation process where it's so personal. There's a way to manage that and to be respectful, and to model, and for them to participate in that healthy, mature communication is a huge learning opportunity.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
The Conductor Choral Series, powered by Music Spoke, is an intentional platform that highlights the voices of women and their allies in the choral music world. This series is designed to elevate and celebrate the contributions of women throughout history, as well as those currently shaping the music scene. Its name, Conductor, intertwines the role of a conductor with the concept of empowerment and the recognition of women in music, a field where their contributions have often been overlooked or underrepresented.
The series serves as a celebration of diverse women's voices, composers, conductors, singers, and advocates, by providing access to choral works that reflect their unique perspectives, creativity, and experiences. Through this collection, Music Spoke gives both emerging and established composers the opportunity to share their voices with the choral community, providing a sense of inclusivity, visibility, and accessibility to repertoire. Check out the Conduct Her Choral Series today for your next concert.
And we're back.
I love that so much. Yes. Yes to all of that. We need more of that in the world. And we will go out and try to do more of these things, the three of us, and tackle it. You've said so many things that resonated with me in the passages that you've spoken so far, some of which include wearing all of these different hats. McKenna and I have experienced that with the podcast and, with navigating being a teacher, being a student at the same time, teaching privately, giving your own professional development, presenting, clinicking, doing all the things that we do. And that on top of running a business that is, learning on the fly, building the plane as we're flying it. And so can you talk, Liana, a little bit about work-life balance and what that looks like for you, given all of the many things that you are doing?
Yes, this is one of my favorite topics. I always say my biggest teachers and my biggest lessons in life are patience and balance. And I felt in my early career, when I was teaching full time in a performing arts middle and high school, I was just such a workaholic, and I did not have that balance. And it was a really hard lesson because coming out of college, so pumped to be in the classroom and feeling like this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life right here, like in this way. And then getting to the end of that 5 years, and for lots of different reasons, just realizing that it wasn't sustainable and it wasn't the right environment for me. I'm glad that I learned it so early, because then I made a major shift and I'm able to do what I do now. But so many people go through that experience of just burning out in the first 3 to 5 years in the classroom. I think honestly, a lot of it is the schedule. Like, just the day starts so early, and I think, I know some of you are morning people out there, but I think it's unnatural to be awake and like doing things, not just being, before the sun comes up. And it's like, when I worked in school, I was waking up at 4:30 when I got a dog and had to take him for a walk first. And like, how can you live a day when you're waking up at that time? Like midday, you're a husk. So when I left that job, I didn't have a plan. I made it to the end of the school year. Then I'm in like my first month of summer, and I had no plans other than to rest and recover. And I met my now husband like a month in, and it just completely shifted my perspective. I'm like, this is my priority. I'm obsessed with you. You're my guy. Like, this is my partner for life. I just knew from the beginning. And because of that, I think every decision I've made after, I always have that at my forefront. And I think I wish that more people had that perspective, that your partner, your relationships, your family, that really needs to be the priority, because it's not that building a career isn't important. Of course it is. And it's how we spend so much of every single day, and you need to be fulfilled. And it needs to be what you're doing and producing to contribute to this world, right? That's my perspective. But why are you doing all of that if it's coming at your, like, the sacrifice of yourself and your own joy? I'm a big believer in, especially as a leader where I'm running lots of teams and responsible for a lot of people's work environments. I just believe that people should be happy doing what they're doing, because if you're happy, then you'll have the energy and be more motivated to do what's being asked of you, and then you'll do it better. So I like to adjust what each of my team members is doing based on their strengths and their skills, and make sure that they're properly equipped to execute whatever their role is. And so that, they're happy, and then that then bleeds into everyone else, and then we're all happy, right? So I think a huge part of how I balance for myself is definitely the schedule, like the sleep. Sleep is everything. Sleep and water, and just like maintaining your body where your brain and your soul live. That's number one. And so I feel so spoiled saying this, but it's just my reality. And if it can be yours, I wish this for you. I don't have to set an alarm in the morning. it's so rare that I have to for something special. I'm like, okay, I have to wake up at 8 today. But for the most part, I just wake up when my body tells me to. I don't set meetings before 10 a.m. And even 10 is like, I would rather do my independent work first thing in the morning and then start my meetings at noon and go maybe like noon to 5 is when I'm in interactions. And the way that my schedule works and what I'm responsible for is, as a leader, I'm planning, strategizing, and delegating most of what needs to be done, both in the chorus and in my business. And so I'm creating agendas. I'm responsible for the bigger picture visions of what's in front of us in the short and long term, and then laying out a plan so that everyone else can, do the things. And so I just found that for my own brain, having that morning time to myself where I can really process everything that's ahead of me, lay it all out, and then, have those interactions is great. I think ending the day and having like boundaries with your time is essential. I'll use my husband as an example. I hope he's not too mad at me when he listens to this, but he is a gigging musician. He has the voice of a man angel, and he's a jazz vocalist and an amazing pianist. And so between teaching private lessons, gigging like at least 6 nights a week, sometimes 2 or 3 gigs in one day, he is in demand, and doing special projects like he just composed the music for a documentary. He's rehearsing for a special performance that's going to have like a tour attached to it, and he's taught full time in a school. He has like a little side hustle that's like outside of music. So I think a lot of musicians' lives look like that. We're piecing together all these different things to like make ends meet. And I just see like the difference where for him, every single day looks so different. And he might have a late gig and he gets home late and then he wakes up a little later. It throws him off completely, So just building in that routine that's different for everyone, like for him, he's like, wake up at the crack of dawn, go to the gym. That gives him the energy for the day, and then you start the rest of it. I think routine and setting boundaries, like when I tell him, you have to stop working at a certain time, I can't have you on the computer at 10 p.m. sending emails. It's like, that's our time, So just, I think especially for younger educators and conductors, there's just this like sense of urgency and the feeling that you have to say yes and that you have to respond to everything. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. It's so unnatural to have like this thing attached to you where everyone feels like they can ask you for anything, anytime. That's like not normal. You don't have to apologize if you answer someone like after 3 days. I didn't even respond to your email when you confirmed this. For all you know, I could have not shown up. I'm a calendar girl, so like that would never happen. But, just I feel like we need to preserve ourselves in order to have the mindset that we need to then do our jobs well. The last piece of advice for juggling all the things, I mean, essentially when you put, time and calendar together, we're getting, guessed it, time management. Like that's really what it comes down to. It's like balance in your life is what is the proportion of time that I want to spend on each thing? If your time is a pie chart, it's like I want to spend 25% of my life just like in being and not doing. Want to spend 40% working, and I want to spend 15% traveling, or whatever it is, decide what that is for you. I go through this little exercise with my students, especially the high schoolers that are about to graduate. I'm like, close your eyes and envision your day from start to finish. When you open your eyes in the morning, what do you want to be like? Who's there? Are you alone? What does it look like? What do? Do you go make yourself a coffee? Are you running out to get something? Are you making it? Are you sitting down at your desk? Are you working from home? Are you going to an office? Are you interacting with people? Are you spending that time alone? You really need to envision that for yourself. And then it's kind of trial and error, but I was able to do it and set myself up in a way that I'm happy. I'm so happy, you guys. I feel like I'm one of the happiest people I know. And if anyone ever needs, like, my friends keep telling me, why aren't you just a life coach already? You know what? If anyone wants to talk to me about life and just like how you can also achieve this kind of state of mind, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. You can do it.
The third business is coming out, Life Coaching by Liana. So just heads up, look for it. It's coming. Put me on your list. No, I'm just kidding. And I think too, like there are seasons, and you talk about, when you are in your early 20s, just know if you're in one of those seasons, that's okay. Like it doesn't mean that you're going to be there forever. I think that exercise of sitting back and really reflecting, like for me, my God, I cannot wait to sleep for a consecutive 4 hours in a row. And it's going to happen probably when Luca's like, not less than one. And I'm looking forward to it. And it's going to be so beautiful. And this is a chapter and I'm taking it in. But just know, like, if you don't find yourself right there right now, it's okay. But also I'm like, Liana, your secrets. I can't wait. I'm excited to know your secrets. We have one last question for you before we get into sort of our wrap up of the podcast. And this is one that we ask almost every guest that comes on the podcast. So we were wondering if you'd be willing to share a time where you faced discrimination and what suggestions you might have for others to overcome this type of adversity. A lot of people that tune in are experiencing maybe something that's challenging at work or in a life situation, and any advice we might be able to offer them would be welcomed.
This is a tough question for me. I was recently on a panel, like an Ask Me Anything panel, and it was about female conductors. And I have lots of discussions. If anyone doesn't know what Bent But Not Broken is, go Google it, okay? Bent But Not Broken. It's a conference. The teams around both of those organizations, I've had lots of conversations about discrimination in terms of gender and race. And being a Hispanic woman and on the younger side, there's the age discrimination too. I get asked that question a lot. And I guess I'll just go back to what I was saying about my mom. I'm so happy and like it, I just don't, I've never had the misfortune of having the perspective that anyone is doubting me because of any factor, And so I wonder sometimes if when there is a challenge, if people automatically assume that it's because that person's discriminating against them, or if, which direction is it coming from? Is it the person really discriminating? Is it the receiving end who is filtering it through that lens, or is it a combination of both? And I'm sure there are situations that fall into any of those three categories. But for me, I just have like such an inner confidence because of the environment that I was raised in at home and in the educational environments that I was in, that I just don't feel like I've been, maybe I was in those situations and people were doubting me, but I didn't perceive it because it never penetrated, So, and I'm super lucky that that's the case. But I guess there's one situation, I don't want to be too specific because I don't want to call anyone out. But there was one time when I was on a planning committee for something, and someone basically was like, "Oh, it's so great to have like a Latin American person on this team. Could you help us pick Mexican music for this thing?" And I'm like, okay, well, I'm Nicaraguan. I'm probably more qualified to do this than someone else, but like that's not my culture. I'll have to ask, So it's things like that the way that we hear, I think more commonly that people say that Africa is a country, and it's like, come on, it's a continent. I think a lot of times we just loop all the Spanish speaking Latin American countries kind of like, that's Spanish music. Well, it's not, it's each of those countries has a completely different culture and lots of sub genres of music, different pronunciations, like, there, we could get into that, but all to say that, that actually inspired me to start what is now a festival. It's called Oye Choral Festival, in Miami, because I realized that there isn't one central gathering place in the United States that highlights and educates people on Latin American music and the distinctions in, what's different with Venezuelan and Colombian and Nicaraguan and Mexican and Cuban music. And so every year now for the past 3 years, we bring in other choirs from the South Florida area and touring groups who come and visit Miami or South Florida, and we present a concert series highlighting all of that music from Latin America and the Caribbean. That has grown into including a teacher workshop where we break down the program, and we commission pieces that are associated with the festival, and even brought the composer Christian Gracias, who is such a great resource for Venezuelan music and Latin music in general. So I think if you ever do feel discriminated against, I always see it as a strength. I'm like, yeah, I am XYZ labels. Like, I don't really think of myself that way, but that is my background, and it's my strength too. It's one of the things that makes me unique. And why not use that to, help others learn more about, my culture.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hey, Kyra.
Hey, McKenna.
You know what choral directors are always looking for?
What?
Well, as choral directors, we are always looking for new pieces to program for our upcoming concerts, and Pavon Publishing is proud to have some outstanding women composers and conductors in its catalog.
Wow, what are some of the new releases?
Well, let me tell you. Canto e Liberta by Liana Salinas and Suzette Ortiz for treble voices, piano, and percussion. It was premiered under the direction of Dr. Iris Levine from Conductor Season 1 and is in her Pavon Treble Choral series.
Ukrainian composer Irina Alexichuk's Holy Lord of Hosts is stunning and was premiered in the U.S. by Grant Gershon and the LA Master Chorale. Grant has launched his new series with Pavon in support of this remarkable composer.
Zenaida Robles, one of the most sought-after female writers, will have her latest composition, The Summit is Nigh, premiered at the ACDA National Convention in Dallas this March. Again, a Conductor Season 2 interviewee.
Janaea Robison, conductor of the Lutheran National Choir, has two new offerings: an SATB voicing of her successful setting of I Wonder as I Wander, and new editions of Bach's cantata BWV 118, with alternative lyrics that enables performances from Advent and Christmas to Palm Sunday and Easter. Check out Pavon Publishing today at pavonpublishing.com.
And we're back.
I love that. You made it, you're a catalyst. I mean, you were like, great, this is now what we're going to do. We're going to show everybody what this looks like and what differences there are. And you're welcome. Here's an event where everybody can come and we can learn about this together. I think that's such a great example. And I think going back to kind of a theme throughout this interview of confidence is something that I don't think can be said enough. We're all lifelong learners and we're always wanting to do our best and wanting to do better. And I think frequently that kind of feedback loop can end up with people getting down on themselves. And I think the more that we can instill in other people, we are all different. And that is what makes us so amazing. And you might be great at this thing. So really lean into that. And this other thing, it might not be a strength for you or might not be something you're familiar with. And that's okay. I think that that's so important. And I'm so glad that these young people get to see you exuding this confidence on a daily basis, because I really do believe that when I see this in my students at school, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you are wonderful. Where is the inner sense of I am me and I'm beautiful? We need more of that in our world. So I really appreciate you saying that, Liana.
I'm glad you picked that out, because when I feel that they need a reminder, I kind of like shout out to the chorus. I'm like, if there's one thing you learned from being an MCC, like, what is it? And they're like, confidence. So it really is something that I try to instill in them, because not everyone is going to have, the household that I had. And it is what makes this world such an amazing place, that we have our differing backgrounds and our opinions. And I'm glad that in that situation, I felt super comfortable just saying, like, let me teach you a little something right now. This is how I received this comment. And she was super apologetic. And I was like, I don't need you to feel like that. I just want you to know that, this, like, learn from this, So I guess anyone who's feeling that doubt or has been faced with those situations, I would just say, well, say what you really want to say and do it in a respectful way. Because I think when you're defensive in those moments, of course, then the other person becomes defensive. And then ultimately the point isn't to like make your point. It's to actually be effective, right? You have to put your teacher hat on and say, how is this person actually going to learn? What's the method that's going to be most effective here? And that, I think, is a bridge to confidence. If you're not feeling confident now, what is it that you really think first? Like, get that clarity. What is your opinion? And then how can I say that in a way that's respectful and going to be absorbed by the other person? And when you do that over and over again, it's proof. You're accumulating proof that it's okay to be yourself. And the more you do that, you start to fortify your opinions and remove that imposter syndrome and just feel like, okay, no, like this, I can just exist as me.
Which is really all anybody needs to do. That's everybody else is taken. It's the slogan on the mugs, but it's the truth. And so I'm so, like Kyra said, excited for all of the MCC students, but also just in general, everyone that gets to be in your presence, to learn from your confidence and to continue to cultivate that and encourage that in others. So what a wonderful Monday afternoon we are getting to have. And I know our listeners, whenever you're listening, you are having it as well. We are so excited to dive in to our Fast Five, Liana. So these questions are supposed to be quick and just sort of one little moment or thing that comes to mind. Don't hesitate to just put the first thing out there. And Kyra's going to kick us off with these Fast Five closing questions.
All right. Question number 1. What is a favorite current choral octavo or composer recommendation that you have?
Okay, current. It's actually not a choral piece, but I'm a big fan of just taking something and making it choral. And luckily, this was actually put on paper. So it's SSAA. It's called Canto a Elegua, and it's in Yoruba. So it's a Cuban piece that's in the native language of Nigeria because of the cultural connection of the unfortunate event of slavery. And so it's the language of Santeria. If you're not familiar, it's like kind of witchery. You have to look into it. There are lots of figures in it, and it's just such a cool piece. Canto a Elegua. And actually, I don't know who the composer is, but the group is Sexto Sentido, which is Sixth Sense. So I don't know if they like co-composed it or it's one of them, but it's super cool, very fluid in rhythm. The score doesn't look exactly like what it sounds like. And the harmony is funky and rich and cool. It has clapping. I mean, anyone who wants to take it on, it's challenging, but I would say like high school into college, women's choir. Oh yeah.
You just are speaking my love language. I'm like adding immediately to the programming list. I cannot wait to look this up after this interview. Liana, what is one misconception about you?
I don't know. I guess my first thing that comes to the top of my head is more like a childhood trauma. Like, I think when I was younger, my confidence was perceived by adults as like arrogance, and there were some like the words that the descriptors that I'd hear were like outspoken, extra, over the top, cocky, and thankfully none of that obviously beat me down enough to like ruin my confidence. But I think that that's a lot of the experience that other people do go through. I think especially girls, just, we hear that all the time, right? It's like a boy is assertive, but a girl is like bossy. So just, I guess I'd encourage anyone who feels like they had that experience, like, hey, maybe your nature actually is confident and strong and assertive. And those are all great qualities. And, you always have to like humble yourself too and make sure that there's always a spectrum of any characteristic. And you want to make sure you're falling on the positive side of that spectrum. But yeah, hopefully I am.
I relate to that so much, Liana. I have a very similar personality, and I think it's taken some life to figure out like how to lean into those qualities and also be an effective leader and know, okay, these are the areas that are not as intuitive for me, and that's okay. I will lead with my confidence. Question number 3. What is one word to describe you as a conductor teacher?
I'd say versatile and experimental, maybe? I know you said one word, but yeah, because I just think, especially as an educator of young people, it's important to expose them to a wide variety of music, stylistically, culturally. And I enjoy that. My background is in music education with a jazz emphasis. So like the contemporary styles, I think are more of my strengths. But I have such a love for the classical styles as well. And you never know what someone's going to fall in love with. So, when you're working with young people, it's like you have to expose them to everything because you never know what's going to click. And it's challenging. And I think I'm a huge fan of an eclectic program. Like it doesn't have to be the theme doesn't have to be the genre. I like to do it through storytelling. We've gathered and now we're a team and we're like building and then we're celebrating or whatever it is. And maybe we're the only ones who know what that is, me and the choir, like, but the audience will get it even if it's subconscious, like they'll still get it. So yeah, versatile.
That is beautiful. And Kyra and I are lovers of a versatile program. Yay, so fun. I would love to be down in Miami to hear the MCC choir perform someday, or maybe I'll catch you on tour. So looking forward to it.
Come through.
I will. What is a choral blooper that you have experienced that you might be willing to share for the good of the group? We think it's good to let everyone know we're human.
A blooper. The thing is, I think we think of performances as these like finished products. We're like, we've reached this point and now we just have to showcase it the way like an artist would be finished with the canvas and then you put it up and that's it. You don't touch it again. But I just feel so unabashed about like if something were to happen and needs to be remedied live, like I'll just say it, So I think there have been moments where I don't even know if this actually happened to me or not, if I'm being totally honest, but I know it happened to my predecessor. And at the time, let's do it in context of that. I remember he stopped a program because the intro, something happened and it just like wasn't together. And then he just stopped and turned around and was like, we're going to start that again because you deserve to hear it the right way. They deserve to do it the right way. Let's just redo. And I know that there have been moments like that for me too. There's one moment that I wish I would have done that. And I hope it's like, I'm not breaking some kind of rule by saying it, but whatever. I'm a very transparent person. Okay. My choral blooper is at ACDA East, my first honor choir ever. So I'm already like super nervous. And the first song is this like bossa samba groove. We'd never practiced it before the day of with percussionists. And, I'm thinking like, these are professionals, like I don't have to worry about it, blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, like they were just not getting the style. The whole time I'm thinking like, this is so off, like the choirs together, we're like vibing. We have our little like literal dance going on. We're grooving, but it's like not quite with the percussion. So I'm not even really conducting at this point. I'm like marching band style, like, like showing like in the clearest way possible. And I bet if I, were to look back at those videos, I just look absolutely horrible. I was just like, what am I going to do? Restart this song, like the first one of the program at ACDA East? Like, no, the show must go on. So it is what it is. I would just say, if you need to stop, just do whatever you think is right for your students' experience.
Words of wisdom right there. We've all had those moments. All right. Our last choral fast five question for you, Liana, is what is a favorite choral memory that you have?
Okay. This kind of reminds me of what you were saying earlier, McKenna, that it's not always the like big performance that we remember. This was in the Miami Children's Chorus. I was probably like 11 years old, and it was my first year in the advanced choir. And at that time, like it wasn't an age thing, it was all level. So, I was the youngest in the group. I was 11 and there were 18-year-olds. And it was my first time singing with this group of like such strong singers. And I was right in the first row in the middle. And so I got like the full choir of like the full surround sound behind me. And I think if there's one thing like that MCC is known for, there's a very specific style of like really forward, pingy, vibrant sound, as opposed to the like, tall, headier, like bel canto vibe. And it was just so powerful. I felt it in every cell of my body. And then like in that same stretch of time, shortly after my dad passed away, the therapy sessions for like the family were Wednesday nights when I had chorus. And I like just threw a fit and was like, no, I'm not going to therapy. Chorus is my therapy. I just got like really upset. And my mom was like, you know what? I think you're right. And so I went back to chorus, and I just remember being in that first rehearsal, and we sang When I Lay Me Down to Sleep. And it was just, you never know which pieces are going to speak to your students and for what reasons. But I needed to hear that piece at that time. And just the combination of like the piece itself and the power of all those voices behind me, and feeling like my voice was being lost in this sea of other voices. And there's just something so magical and about it. And it's like a microcosm of what I think the world is. It's like we're just a little drop in the ocean, but we're still a part of the ocean. It was really special. And I think that's part of why I'm so sensitive to programming and making sure that there's a little story or a little message that's going to speak to each of my students, because I know it can have such a deep and meaningful impact.
Oh, that was beautiful, both of them. Thank you for sharing, Liana. We appreciate all of your honesty and candor and delightful being that's been here today. So thank you for sharing. We know our listeners will love this episode, so we appreciate you. We hope that Conductor listeners, you've enjoyed this episode, and we hope you follow us and Liana and Miami Children's Choir on Instagram and Facebook and all of the places. You can listen to this episode on YouTube, and we thank you for coming.
Thank you guys so much. You're such wonderful listeners. It's always so affirming to hear your thoughts reflected back to you, and you're like, yeah, you're really listening. We're really connecting. And I feel like an interview always feels slightly one-sided, obviously, but I still feel like I got to know both of you on a deeper level. And hopefully this will be just the first of many deep conversations that we'll have together.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening. This has been Conductor. This episode was engineered and mixed by Mary Hannah Klontz, with intro and outro music by Flo Garut and ad music by Kate Crellin. Discover more resources at conductor.com.